Once we're live, you may go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Just tell me when we are ready for the recording. Is okay?
Yes, perfect. We're ready. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning to all of you, and nice to meet you here today. And I will have the pleasure to introduce this leadership conversation today. Welcome. And with this, I will tell you, welcome everyone to the Pop Climate Leadership Conversation, a tribute to our chief mentor. This project aims to strengthen your leadership, youth leadership, and explore tactics that empower the youth to take action and tackle the most pressing environmental issues faced globally. We are conducting a series of conversations on leadership strategies, recommendations, reflections, and examples, global leadership, and a different pressing environmental issue. This initiative is designed and implemented as a tribute to our chief mentor, late Dr. Arki Pachori. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Salvador Avila, Director of Plastic Ocean Mexico, about the leadership needed to reach a circular economy. Thank you so much, Salvador, to having us in your mind, and for us, it's a pleasure to have you today with us. Without this, over to you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Dr. Norma, and thank you so much, Salvador, for being here with us today. I am very excited that you're taking part of this initiative. So for everyone who's here with us now or who's listening to us via live stream, I will now go ahead and introduce our guest speaker. Salvador Avila, or Sal, as he's called by his friends, is the Executive Director of Plastic Oceans Mexico. Originating from Monterrey, Mexico, his first plunge into the world of social causes came during college, when he volunteered for a program that taught moral and ethics to at-risk kids, a role he held for 2 years. After college, he joined the organization Villas, ABP, a nonprofit focused on giving safe spaces for children and preteens in dangerous neighborhoods. He served as Director of External Communications, helping from the department and updating them on the current communication models. Sal then left to Barcelona to study a specialty in public relations and event planning, and it was then that he had his first peek into the environmental scene. While working with tourists in a hostel and observing the recycling programs in the European Union, and the efficient public transportation system, he began to ponder the level of consumerism most people live in and resolved to make some changes. In 2018, he was part of the team that built up Pure Clean Earth, a nonprofit, where he served as Director of Communications for this organization across England and Spain. And since 2020, he has been a part of Plastic Oceans International, where he is now the Executive Director for the branch in Mexico. So thanks again, Sal, for being here with us today. For this session, what we do is we normally have the youth ask different questions about the topic in hand. As Dr. Norma said, we will be speaking about what leadership is needed for society to reach a circular economy. So with this in mind, I will hand it back to Dr. Norma, who will be asking the first question.
Thank you, Anna. Well, thank you, Salvador. Thank you so much for being here. We are looking forward to this insightful conversation. First, I would like to kindly ask you, like Anna said, what leadership means to you and how has this helped you build and motivate your team? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norman. Thank you, Anna, for that very kind introduction. Thank you to the whole team for having me here. Leadership. You know, my father has always told me that leadership is not about only delegating or giving orders or anything. It's about nurturing, because leadership is not only about achieving a goal, it's about helping your team to grow. That's what it means to be a leader and not to be just a boss. I think that his words and his example and how he leads his team is something that I've always aspired to. I think that with my team, the only reason I am where I am, or the only reason I am in my position as leader, is age. Experience really is the only thing that differentiates, but capacity and decision making and the ability to see far ahead is something that my entire team shares. And so what we've done, or what I've tried to instill in my team, is this ability to select a common goal, to, as a group, see where we're going and set our sights on it. And then after that, my only work has been finding new ways to nurture and help my team grow into their potential. I would say into their full potential, but their potential is limitless. So to reach as much as they can through me, and hopefully after me, they will continue on that path with more people.
Thank you, Salvador. Wonderful. I think that here we can, without any doubt, say that family, and in this case, your father was teaching you with example. That is very important, to teach with example. I think that is an issue that we are learning in our house with our family, in the surrounding that we have, because the school can give us a lot of skills, but in reality, yourself, how you are, how you behave, is becoming from your house. Skills, goals, teams, work, those are keywords that help anybody that wants to achieve something in life, can help a lot. Thank you so very much. I'm sure that those are the characteristics in your life that you are teaching all around your team, all around your life, and with your colleagues and friends, because it's really very important. Congratulations to be with us and to be like you are, because that is a good example. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, and to you, please.
Thank you so much, Doctora. I completely agree. I think it's great to see how your father has taught you all these great strategies to become a leader, and it's nice to see how you look up to him. I would now like to hand it over to Komal, who will be asking the second question.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Mr. Salvador, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you also for inviting us at the Trees and Seas Festival. We truly had so much fun, and we lived a grateful experience. So my question to you is that, so you were the part of the building team at Pure Clean Earth. How did this influence your leadership strategy when joining Plastic Oceans Mexico? And what were some of the challenges you have faced during this time? Yeah,
it's a really good question, because as you'll see, some of the challenges were quite similar. So for those of you here with us, Pure Clean Earth was an organization that two friends and I founded in Barcelona, that was mostly dedicated to doing beach cleanups and environmental education for companies and schools, but mostly at a one-off talks. We started that, oh wow, what was it, 2016, 2017, approximately, and we worked on that for 2 years. I was in Barcelona studying my master's degree when we started doing these beach cleanups. I came back to Monterrey, and while I was here, my two friends who were still in Europe, still doing these events, these cleanups, decided to formalize the organization. And so I helped them, structure how we could work. I helped them a little bit with legal advice, but mostly we spoke about communications. And it grew quite organically. It honestly started as just the beach cleanups, and then a company asked us to do a talk for their employees, and then a school, and then it started to snowball, and it was fantastic. It lasted 2 years, after which we were approached by Plastic Oceans International, asking if we were willing to collaborate with their new European branch. And we decided from there to merge our organization with theirs because, you know, we had the local experience, we had the local permits, etc., the NGO status. But what we were lacking, and what was one of our main challenges at the time, was a formal team. It was only 3 or 4 staff members and about 10 to 15 volunteers. But you know, as NGOs, you're aware, you know, one of the issues with volunteers is that they have limited time on their hands, and an NGO takes up all your time to run. So we had that one challenge. The other challenge was that I was in Monterrey and they were in Europe, so all of our meetings were virtual in the time before pandemic. In a time when this was unusual. We had all our meetings were virtual, and there was a 7-hour difference. So I was having calls at 6 a.m, and I am not a morning person. I love beach cleanups after 11. No, so that was it was the challenges of an entrepreneurship when you're starting a project that you sometimes don't even know much about. You know, you start a project with an idea, and then you gain experience, and you start studying, and you start learning, and so you grow from there. And so having that experience from far away, from a virtual standpoint, was interesting. And it was also quite fantastic because it coincided with that in 2019, we're approached by Plastic Oceans. We merge with them. And as we merge, I'm invited to join Plastic Oceans Mexico as the executive director. Once I'm asked to join there, was just when the pandemic started. And so something that started as this is going to be a 2-week, you know, close up in your house, ended up being nearly 2 years. And what for many people was a challenge, for me was a format of having virtual meetings that I'd already followed for 2 years beforehand. So I was very accustomed to that. It wasn't a transition period. Of course, this came with new challenges because this was a bigger organization. As Anna can testify, really, when I came in, we sort of started from scratch. We went back to basics. But I had just had that experience with Pure Clean Earth. You know, I had just had that experience of what we need to have everything structured and able to grow sustainably. I had the experience of my team in Pure Clean Earth was brilliant. Andrea and Dan are both just impressively intelligent people, and they were all about equality without ever having to talk about this concept of leadership. You know, we each had our roles, but all 3 of us really worked as equals, and we really helped each other go along and grow. And that's the way we always treated the team. So I guess that, like you said, Doctora Norma, I had, you know, our family is one of our basis of education and of our personality, but the other is our friends. You know, the people that you surround yourself with on a constant basis are some of your strongest influencers in how you behave and how you do things in your life. And so I had the wonderful experience of my family being one way, and then having my first environmental team be that exact same way, you know, very much about nurturing each other and taking care of each other. And it became a second family. And once I joined Plastic Oceans and I got to know the team and we started, like I said, going back to basics, I realized that they were all not just as capable as the Pure Clean Earth team, but possibly more so. You know, these are people that they're younger, they actually studied these topics, and so they are much better prepared than we ever were to begin these projects. And it has been easy leading them. It's been a challenge in work. It's been a challenge for us to create, you know, Plastic Oceans. It's been a challenge for us to structure and find projects and the challenges of a job. But leading them has been simple. And that is thanks to them and thanks to all the learning experience in Pure Clean Earth.
Thank you so much, sir. It's actually very, very inspiring that how we face different challenges and then how we overcome with at each particular step by learning with the situations or by ourselves or with others as well. So yeah, this is truly inspiring. Thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Kamal, for that great question. And Sal, even though I've known you for 2 years, it's great to see you talk about how you got here, what inspires you. It's really inspiring to hear you answer all of these questions. I would now like to hand it over to Mira, who will help us with the next question.
Thank you so much, Anna. Greetings, sir. So I'll go right away to ask my question. What are some of the strategies Plastic Oceans Mexico uses to promote a circular economy? How has this strategy grown and developed?
Well, that's a really good question. It's really been the focus of the last month's discussions. Historically, okay, I'm gonna go back before I muddle up my thoughts. Historically, Plastic Oceans has focused mostly on two lines to promote circular economy, which are education and legislation advocacy. Yeah. On the one hand, in advocacy, we focus on promoting laws and lawmaking worldwide, not even just in Mexico, but worldwide, that mitigate the use of single-use plastics, especially single-use plastics that are deemed really unnecessary and just a convenience, you know? That was one. And the other was education. In education, what we look to do is circular economy doesn't come down just to laws. It doesn't come down to just stores selling circular products and ecological products. It comes down to individual people. It comes down to our consumption behaviors. So something that we look to inspire or to transmit to people is the fact that their actions do matter. You know, sometimes the environmental world tends to focus on the macro solutions, and they are important. I will never say they're not. We have to focus on lawmaking. We have to focus on systemic change. It is important, but we can never leave to the side the importance of personal change, because society does come down to individuals. And for individuals to make change, they need to understand. One of the biggest issues with pollution crises in general, not just plastic pollution, is this lack of understanding because the information can be so complex. So what we look to show people is what their personal decisions, the way those personal decisions impact the world. How circular economy, like I said, doesn't just come down to a circular economy law. It comes down to a behavior, because as humans have always proven, it doesn't matter what laws are in place, we will find a way to make our lives convenient. So even if we have the most comprehensive and binding circular economy law in the world, if people don't change their habits, they will find a way to mess up the system, because the world system is about balance. And our linear way of thinking is unbalanced. So even if we have laws in place, we will simply transfer our consumption behavior, our consumerist behavior, our unbalanced behavior into other things. And so circular economy will never be possible unless we change individual behavior. One of the issues there is that we tend to see circular economy as just, you know, creating everlasting or reusable or recyclable or compostable products. But it's not even just that, because we could make everything out of sustainable wood. But if people don't modify their consumerist behavior, then it's never circular enough, because it's not just about the product being reusable or compostable or recyclable. It's about how often I buy that product, how I use it, how long I use it for, that I, Sal, take care of the end of that product. You know, it's not just about having a law that says, okay, all plastic must be recycled by companies. It's about me actually taking my plastic products, my paper products, my metal products to that center. And that comes down to individual behavior, because no one's going to come to my house and arrest me for not recycling, no matter the law, because we don't, in spite of the way it sometimes seems, we don't actually live in a dystopian society, you know? So in the end, no matter the laws, no matter how much we impose on companies to create better products, the end consumer, the end of that line is me. If I start the circle at one point, it starts with me and ends with me. I demand the product, I use the product, and I have to take care of the end of that product. So individual behavior is the one that decides if circular economy will really be functional. I don't know if that answered the question. I feel like I
No, you
Well, now-
actually really hit key points. I really do acknowledge your response. The fact that you started by talking about the key factors being education and legislation advocacy. I do acknowledge the fact that education has a major key role in this, but at the end of it all, like you talked about it, it takes personal intervention in order for circular economy to get attained. So I do acknowledge the fact that education is crucial, but at the end of it all, it comes out to the moral story that someone would take out of the system, willingness to change the mindset and character and behaviors that you always go by each day. Thank you so much for that amazing response, sir. I guess I'll have to yield the floor to Anna.
I think if I can add one last thing, something that's really important to remember is people and all people, you know, citizens and environmentalists and non-environmentalists and everyone, people tend to have a certain behavior of victimizing themselves. You know, we always want to blame the system. We always want to be victims of the system. And while the system is in place and there are key people in it that we have to push, we also have to remember that we are a part of that system. You know, yeah, my societal life is part of the system, but my home life comes down to me. And I can break that system and I can change that system. And when we go into the system of legislation, we have to remember that we do actually have power there. The main weakness in the democratic system is active participation from the people. We do have the power, we've just been a bit lazy to use it. So again, it all comes down to the individual. It all comes down to the people actually recognizing their own potential, recognizing their own power, and deciding to use it, and deciding to change their life, and deciding to go for the product that's maybe a little less comfortable, maybe a little bit more inconvenient, but not really that much, and standing up and going to their local Congress and Senate and whatever form of government every democracy has. We all have a participation in it. We just have to actually stand up and do it.
Thank you so much. I think you're more like highlighting the aspect of democracy as a system for the people and by the people. I think that's something that people have failed to like recognize and acknowledge, given the fact that we are always pointing fingers at government, NGOs and all. But at the end of the day, I feel like we've all obtained this knowledge to some extent, be it formally or informally. I trust that everyone has certain instincts and knowledge that would help us address some of these issues and attain the goals that we are set to achieve. But the issue is the pointing of fingers. And I think if everyone learned the aspect of sitting down and acknowledging the fact that they do have a role to play and stop looking somewhere else, I feel like we can move further than where we are right now. Yes, so thank you so much for putting that out.
We all have, the other thing is, as a part of a system and as part of a democratic system, we all have power, but we don't just have the power to act, we also have the responsibility to act. And that's the part that we like to ignore. That's the part where we point fingers. That's the part where it's very easy to say, well, I don't want to pay my taxes because they're just going to steal them anyway. No, first pay your taxes because that's your duty and that's your responsibility, and then complain about it. You know, the one of the easiest things that people always say is, well, my one straw won't make a difference. Why stop using it? That's not the main problem. It's not the only problem. It is a problem. First, stop using it. First, make a personal change, and then demand other people to change. But you can't just place the the responsibility and the blame on everyone else, that's where we are a failed democracy. We're not a failed democracy because a democracy is a lie. We're a failed democracy because the demos and the kratos are separated, and we're not taking control of that, and we're not fulfilling our responsibility. We just want someone else to carry the blame. So for everyone out there, assume your responsibility, take your power, and act.
Thank you so much, sir, for that amazing.
I'm going into political theory now.
Thank you so much, sir. Really do appreciate your insights in this question, and I would like to yield the floor to Anna.
Thank you so much, Mira. I think this question was so interesting, and I love the turn it took and how it really makes us reflect on how much is in our hands, right? As Salvador says, we tend to focus on, companies, governments need to make a difference, but this won't happen if we don't make a difference ourselves as well. So thank you so much for that really insightful conversation. And now I would like to ask you, Sal, if you could tell us more about how Blue Communities is promoting community-led transitions towards a circular economy. And how does the youth in these Blue communities inspire and influence your work?
That's a brilliant question, because a quick summary for everyone. Blue Communities is a program by Plastic Oceans International, where we look to find local organizations that are working towards, environmental goals, and that they do so at a local level with efficient programs. We look to find these organizations and create a network of collaboration. Something that we're looking to find there is organizations that are willing to give each other a hand in growing, each one with their own goals, each one with their own methodology. Some work with flora, some with fauna, some with plastic pollution, some with green markets. There's a little bit of everything, but they all have this one end goal in mind, which is, save the planet. It's ambitious and huge, but that is the end goal for all of us. And so Blue Communities is focused on these local organizations because they are so often looked over. They are so often forgotten or crushed. We have these global organizations that have these really well-intentioned programs and sometimes some amazing results, but that tend to come to local communities and impose their way of working. They come in, they bring their team in from the outside instead of including the local community. They impose the projects that, hey, you know what, we've done beach cleanups in Timbuktu, so it's going to be the same way in the Riviera Maya, and it doesn't. So because environmental problems, while they are global problems, they're also local problems with their own subtle changes. You'll have beaches with microplastics, you'll have beaches with ghost nets, you'll have beaches with cruise ship waste, with tourist waste, with industrial waste. Each one has their own differences. So the idea with Blue Communities is getting these organizations that already know their local problem, they're already working towards fixing it, and they're doing so hand in hand with the community, which, as you all know, the communities always carry historic knowledge and wisdom, and we cannot overlook that and we cannot forget that. So that is Blue Communities. And something that is really cool that I found there is that while I've met people from many large organizations, usually large organizations tend to have their one project, their one goal. You have the people that work with sea turtles, and you have the people that work with plastic pollution or air pollution or whatever, and they focus on those 2 or 3 actions. And when you get to see the Blue Communities, these local guys with, less resources, less fame, less platform, and they're all doing multiple things that are so amazing. And something that I saw that a lot of them have in common is that while some of them work, like I said, with turtles or with mangroves or with sharks or with plastic pollution, about half of them have some project related to circular economy. And that is fantastic to see. At a local level, that was their first, instinct, that this is where we have to head. while we do work in sea turtle conservation, we also have to promote circular economy. And this comes from the fact that they work, like I said, with the community. Their team members and their leaders are community-based. And the basis for circular economy is the community. Because for something to be circular, it has to be, it has to be either organic or artisanal or reusable or compostable, recyclable. And usually the way to achieve that is local production, is community production. And so the blue communities are so focused on that way in different manners. You have some in the Riviera Maya who have courses for the community members to come and learn a trade, or to come and learn to create products that they can sell to the community that are made from local materials. Then you have others, for example, in Campeche, and I'm using the Mexican ones because they're the ones that I know best. But obviously the 45 blue communities are part of this Mudfish No Plastic has some great projects, but the people in Campeche have actually created a green market and a sustainable store certification. And so what they do is on the green market every weekend, they gather local producers with environmental and circular products created from reused materials or from recyclable materials or zero waste items. And they get together every weekend to promote those products, to promote the community economy. And then throughout the week, they visit different shops in the city, shops that aren't necessarily small, shops that don't necessarily come to the green market, but that have circular practices. And this can range from clothing shops to cafes to really anything that promotes local creation, local economy, and circular products. And so the blue communities are, I think, the biggest example of what we just spoke about in our last question. It comes down to individual behavior. The green market in Campeche is not created because of a local law. It's not created because of a national law. It's not created because anyone told them to do it. The only reason that green market exists, the only reason those products and those shops exist, is because these people decided to break the wheel. They decided to do something different. And they decided to do so because they could and because they understand the responsibility. Another weakness of large organizations is that when you work on a scope affecting change on areas which you possibly haven't even visited, let alone lived in, you understand what you're trying to achieve, but you don't necessarily have that sense of responsibility to the ground that you're standing on. One of the problems with people in general is this disconnection they have to everything. We can see pictures, we can see documentaries, but in the end, change comes down to that sense of responsibility, and that sense of responsibility comes from your responsibility to the ground that you're standing on, to your local community. The way you behave with people, or if you're going to help people around you, doesn't come from living on one end of the planet and saying, oh, we're going to save Africa. What does that even mean? You don't have to go to the other ends of the earth to help nature, to help people. You can start in your own town, in your own community. There's always things to do, but we have to take responsibility. We have to stand up, like I said, and take action in your community. You don't have to go to a beach cleanup somewhere else in the country to get a sense of environmentalism. You can clean your own park. You can sweep the street. You can sweep the sidewalk in front of your house. You can start recycling in your house, And so I think the blue communities are that perfect example of people that aren't looking outside of their community to help. They aren't looking for solutions outside. They aren't looking to save, everything and everyone. They're working in their community towards that end. How am I going to save the planet? By cleaning my street. I don't need to go to the Philippines to do a beach cleanup. I don't need to go to Canada to give a talk. I can start with my community because I can affect change here. And by saving your community, you save the planet. Because if everyone focuses on their community and on their surroundings and on their ground, then nobody needs to go somewhere else to save them. It's about affecting change locally to make change globally. I don't know if that answered your question, Anna.
No, definitely. It definitely didn't. Thank you for giving that intro. I think I just jumped right into, oh, what do you do in Blue Communities? So thank you for first speaking about what Blue Communities is. And it's so interesting to look at it from this different lens, right? Seeing as naturally these NGOs are implementing circular economy principles and initiatives, and there's so much we can learn in bigger cities from what is being done in these communities. So I think the work that's being done is so important. And yeah, that definitely answers the question. And we have one final question that will be asked by Ricardo, who's here with us as well.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all these amazing thoughts about all the work you do and your philosophy of it all. I actually have two questions. And the first one is, how can we invite more of the youth to take part of environmental movements as they grow professionally as well? That's my first question.
How can we invite more of the youth to take part in environmental movements as they grow professionally? It's something that is really cool that I've seen precisely with my team here in Plastic Oceans, is that the younger generations and the youth of, and I feel so old saying that phrase, but younger people come in with a new chip, you know. I think the people in my generation and earlier generations, and maybe Dr. Norma can attest, I think a lot of us love the environment. I think a lot of us have learned what it means to be an environmentalist. Ricardo, can we mute your mic a little bit? I think it's creating a little bit of static. Thanks. You know, our generations learned what it means to be an environmentalist. They learned what it means to be environmentally aware. And I can attest for myself, when I was a child, I loved animals and I loved being in nature. And I was aware of certain bad practices. You know, I was aware that gasoline was bad for the environment. I was aware that, you know, fracking was bad, but it was this general awareness of the massive problems, which everyone is aware of. But there was very little personal awareness and there was very little personal action. And the reality is that I have learned to be more environmentally friendly. It didn't necessarily come that naturally to me. It probably came more naturally than to other people, but it didn't come as natural, like, hey, instinctively, I know to behave this way. No, I learned to do so. And I've learned so much these 2 years from my team. It's been fantastic. But when I look over and I see their generation, and we're not even that far apart, it's 7 years, but they are so different. And not just my team, but the people that join us in events, the people that write to us, they have a different chip. It's like seeing a baby right now playing with an iPad. They just instinctively know what to do. It's come naturally to them. And that is fantastic. And it's something that we do have to nurture. So how do I motivate them to take more part in environmental movements? By facilitating it for them. I think that they have a larger instinct and they have a larger drive to actually do these things. Sometimes, and like I said in the past two questions, sometimes the hard part is, you know, taking the initiative to be the first to do it. So what we've seen is that every time we have an event, these people show up and these people get so excited about it. And that is where we can make the most to educate them, because it's not just about going to the one-off tree planting. It's not just about going to the one-off beach cleaning. It's about motivating them to take that home. Again, it all comes down to what we can do in our area, in our 2 feet of space where we stand. And so we take the opportunity with these events, with these great events. And, the team just had an experience there in what we do with the tree planting, but then it's motivating people to not just take part in the environmental movement, but take the environmental movement to their house. It's not just going outside and joining a movement. It's about taking that and applying it to your house. And I think with these events, with these talks, with this inspiration, it's possible. With this, something that's been lacking historically in environmental movements is positive feedback. We tend to shock and scare. The world is going to end, and the mountains are going to fall, and everyone's going to go extinct, and the pollution and the ozone layer, and it's always a scary thing. It's always negative feedback. It's always, you're not doing enough. You have to do more. You have to be vegan and be plastic free and be circular and be zero waste and it's always pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's not about that. It's about inspiring people to go down those roads. But you can't do that by criticizing. You can't do that by scaring them. You have to do it by positive experience. You have to do it by positive feedback. You have to do it by explaining. And that's what I said, I think, in the first or second question, that their small changes do matter, that their small changes do make a difference, that, stopping your use of plastic straws is not going to save the planet, but it just might, because it demonstrates a change in behavior for you. And it's about starting with that straw and continuing down that path with more things. It's about motivating people to do constant change, not asking them to do immediate change, an immediate, transformation of go from living what society has deemed a normal human life to what I'm telling you is going to save the planet. No, it's about making small progressive changes. And that all happens through positive experiences, but through positive experiences linked to education and linked to insight. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question. I can keep going.
That answered pretty well. Thank you so much. My second question is about what systematic changes are needed so environmental related works can become more common careers.
First off, I think that's a really good question. First off, I think schools need to change. Environmental education is going to be key in people wanting to actually have a career in this. And while there are some environmental careers, the reality is that environmental education from primary school is very limited. It's focused on just the basics, and then they go off and teach you everything else that they believe that you have to know about everything, instead of focusing on core subjects. I mean, honestly, world history is super interesting, and there are things that we have to know, but there are probably things that could be reduced. Some aspects of advanced mathematics in secondary school could possibly be changed to, hey, you know what, maybe teach me how to do my taxes and environmentalism work. That's going to be a lot more useful down the line in my life. There's some great programs like Notion, which is a Mexican organization that deals in the next step of education evolution. They are Notion, Knowledge in Action. And something that they're trying to do is to impart these topics and impart this knowledge through other subjects. They can put in environmental information through math class. They can put in environmental information through geography class. And it comes down to realizing that children actually have a huge potential for learning. And so the examples that we use should be practical as well. Maybe don't tell me what Jose would do with 150 watermelons in his cart. I don't need that example. And we all remember those absurd examples. Maybe use practical examples in environmentalism to teach that math lesson, that physics lesson. Yeah. So I think that's the first systemic change, is that education has to involve environmentalism as a whole throughout the entire process. It's not something that can be stopped. It's not something that hey, you graduate high school, you don't need to know about environmentalist issues anymore. You go into college and forget about that. No, when we go into college, at least in Mexico, we have these core subjects that all majors see anyway. Environmentalism should be one of them, because people become ignorant and because people don't, again, necessarily change instinctively. So you have to keep educating them. You can't stop, because once you stop, there's this transformation when you go into college of, okay, now you are a grown-up and this is how you're supposed to behave, and this is the line that you've chosen, and this is the career path that you've chosen. And so nothing else that you learn in high school matters. And that is wrong, because taking charge of our environmentalist actions, taking charge of our responsibility for the planet, is the most adult thing we can do. So I think first systemic change is education. Education has to involve environmentalism as a whole permanently, without exclusion. And the second is, depending on the country and depending on local laws, one of the biggest hesitants, or one of the biggest factors that makes people hesitate to have an environmentalist career is, how much money are you going to make? Not necessarily that people want to be rich, not at all, but people want to have a decent life, and people want to be able to have certain comforts, and people want to be able to, go on a vacation once in a while and pay for their children's education without worrying, and be able to eat out at a restaurant once in a while. People want to have a life where once in a while they can kick back, they can relax, they can enjoy their time. And unfortunately, not just environmentalism, but societal causes in general, if you work with children or nutrition or environmentalist actions or absolutely anything that is not, company-based or product-based, has been limited in that regard. And on the one hand, there's this perception that if someone works for a societal cause, they should do it for the minimum amount, because if you care for the planet, then you shouldn't have any interest in making any money, and that's wrong. We should, of course, not be interested in becoming billionaires, because we all know the societal devastation that causes, but we should all aspire to have the life that we wish, and we should be able to achieve it in any job that we choose. Why can I choose to be a movie star or a lawyer or a doctor or have multiple companies or a chef or be an influencer? I don't even have to study a career for that. I can just go into Instagram, become famous, and become rich. Why am I allowed to make money off of any other job description in the world except societal causes? And that is one of the perceptions that has to change, that people need to stop thinking, well, you shouldn't make as much money if you work in societal issues. Companies need to focus. A lot of companies donate money to these causes and say, but you can't use them for salaries. Why not? Well, we want our money to make an impact in cleanups or in tree plantings. Well, yeah, but to make an impact, I need to pay my team, because otherwise I'm stuck working with volunteers who, as we said previously, have limited time. I need people to be able to devote their life to this. And for them to devote their life, they need to be able to be happy with their life. And if you're working for 2 cents an hour, breaking your back, saving the planet, then you're not happy and you are stressed, because environmental stress is big. And there is a lot of burnout. And part of that burnout is being stressed about the environment, stressed about your job, and stressed about not being able to upkeep your life. So societal thinking of this way needs to change. People need to understand that environmentalists need to make a living. Companies need to understand that part of the impact that they wish to achieve through their donation includes paying salaries and includes paying for the people that they want to do the cleanup. Why should I tell my team, well, I have, $5 to do a beach cleanup, but it has to go to materials. I need you to donate your time. Why should I have to ask people to gift their time to their job? They should be able to make a living. And the last one is the government, because you have people's way of thinking, companies' way of thinking, and then you have the government. And the government has limited in many places, and it varies country to country, but there is legislation that limits, how much money an NGO can bring in through donations, how much money an NGO can bring in through selling any product, and how much percentage of donations can be used for salary. So they've decided, that for $100 that you get of donations, only 5 may go to salaries. And so you have to achieve really high results, and you have to save the planet with the 2 people that you can pay, and you can only pay them 2 cents an hour. And that's horrible, and it's uninspiring to people. You can come out of college loving the environment and wanting to make a change, but then you see some of the challenges of working here and some of the challenges that'll bring to your life. And it's demotivating. We're trying to do good, and people and companies and the government make it hard. It's insane when you think about it. So I think those are the biggest challenges in having a career in environmentalism. It's the fact that you have to realize that ultimately what this means is that the work is unappreciated by these 3 groups, by society in general, by the companies, and by the government. And so you have to make a decision if that's enough, and then work towards, again, breaking that system. And it is going that way. I think people are realizing that this is not just about volunteering. I think companies as a whole, our experience in Plastic Oceans has been mostly positive when companies come up and do donations, and we tell them, we push back, and that is something sometimes that environmentalists forget, that we can push back. We can refuse. We can tell the company, you know what, then I don't want your donation. It's great that you want to make a change, but you need to value my team and you need to value their work, and you can say no, and there will be other opportunities, and then you can help your team better manage their time on other projects that will help them actually have a life there. We as well are empowered, and we just need to push hard.
Thank you so much. And yes, I think we have to do a lot of improvement in our everyday, in our work, and even in our lives to achieve what we want to achieve. Thank you so much, sir. And I hand it to Ana.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. That was such a great answer. I really think we're all so lucky to be able to work with you and listen to you all of these words, because as you say, I think it's common to be sometimes unmotivated by how the corporate world sometimes perceives our work. But for the final conclusions, just really quickly, I will hand it over to Dr. Ana.
Thank you so much, Ana. Thank you so much, Salvador. It was really an amazing, interesting conversation with you. I can tell that you took us in this conversation in a smooth way, like everything is too easy to achieve and to conclude and to do. The reality for me is that can be in that way, very easy, when you do what you love, when you do in what you believe. And I think that education is a key in all this matter. And it's not like only education per se, but I think that education comes together with communication, with friendship, with everything in the world, and will be very, very easy. For me, it's very important because I always thought that the way to dominate a people is to keep them in ignorance. If you don't share communication, if you don't share information, if you don't share what you have in your life and what are you doing, it's very difficult to ask somebody to follow you. You can be working together because I am very good in what I do, but I think that to share with people is so important, and you are doing that. Thank you so very much. And I would like, before I conclude with this amazing conversation, Salvador, it was a pleasure to hear you. It was a pleasure to listen your thoughts and what you did and what you are doing now. And I will invite you, because I saw that you are very, very close to the Barcelona people. We are working since many years ago with the Politécnica de Catalunya, together with my institution, that is Instituto Politécnico Nacional, as you know, and also POP. And this will be the 7th year that we organize a colloquium for students in the Politécnica, yes, in Barcelona. We will invite you. It will be a pleasure for us to have you as a conferencist to give this information to people. You can share with me if you want some of your contacts. We can invite them also. This year, our topic will be Youth for Climate Action. And we work with the universities in Barcelona also, and also with the European community of the Global Network MX, that is the Mexicans, people who never came back to Mexico. They are working in many places. And we organize this together with the Mexican Embassy and the Consulate in Barcelona. You will be very welcome to participate with us as a very important people, young people, to talk to young people and to say what you did since your beginning in Barcelona. Thank you so very much.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you to you. And we keep in touch, certainly with Anna. I was telling her now in the WhatsApp, in the chat. And well, very soon we will send you an invitation if you agree. I anticipate you that the colloquium will be from 2022 to 25 in Barcelona. You can
Brilliant.
to keep your place in your agenda. That will be very busy. Thank you so much to everyone who was with us today for your incredible questions and for your incredible answers. And we see you soon. Thank you, Ana. Thank you, Salvador.
Thank you all so much.
See you soon.